Welcome back to Work-Life Harmony. Today, we're going to be doing something that I am terrified of, which is this. I recently was introduced to the Kolbe Index assessment. I took it, I gave my results to an expert, and she is coming on the show here today to explain them to me with you. I don't even know how this is going to go. So I'm about to get real, we're about to get vulnerable, and you all are going to learn a lot more about me here today together. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey everyone. So we are both, all of us here today is going to learn interesting things about me real time that I don't even know about myself yet. So I have an amazing guest, Heidi, here today. I'm going to have her introduce herself here real quick and tell us a little bit about what she does. But what we're going to be unpacking here today on the show is Heidi introduced me. You guys know I love all things personality tests and discs and assessments and all of that. Anything to help me learn how I tick better so that I can work better with others. Well, Heidi introduced me to the Kolbe Index, which I'm surprised had not come across my desktop. I took the assessment. Unfortunately, guys, it's not free. So those of you like going out right now, Heidi's going to tell you more about how you can get this assessment. I took the assessment. I sent my results to Heidi. And here on the show, live in real time today, I'm going to learn about myself and what the outcome of my assessment is. So I'm really excited about this. Heidi, welcome. And why don't you tell everyone about yourself?
Oh, Megan, I'm so pumped. It's so fun to be able to bring this information to newbies. And I was new to this assessment too. I think most of us have
Yeah,
taken a million, but it's
right.
been around for 25 years. It's not a new one, but it's just new to most people. It is personal and business development's best kept secret, which is one of the reasons I'm excited to share it because I don't want it to be a secret. That's not the point. So
So
again,
tell
my name
everyone
is,
what you do then
yes.
as in your line of work that brings this all in.
So my name is Heidi Metro. You're going to see Metro and you're going to say that out loud. And then you're going to go, oh, that's right. She said it was Metro.
Intro.
So we'll send you the secret handshake. You're now in. You have exclusive behind the scenes. But I have a company called When You Lead Coaching and Consulting. And we really have this philosophy that every single person on the planet is a leader. And when you lead in your particular way, the
Mm,
world changes. And I think there are zero exceptions to that. We are all the leaders of our own lives. Some of us lead other people and we have different decision-making requirements, but I genuinely, and we as a company know that everyone are leaders. And so we use the Kolbe assessment, this index, to help people understand how they lead on an instinct basis. And then what we do is we help teams to come to a collaborative place, knowing each other's Kolbes. So we really level set the language and then we leverage their skills and talents to make sure that everybody's got a seat at the table.
oh, that's fantastic.
It's so
Um,
fun.
so what is the Kolbe Index or Kolbe assessment, kind of the 30,000 foot view of this?
Yep. So there are three parts of the mind. And this is something that I was new to. I was like, well, I know I feel scatterbrained, but what do you mean there are three parts of the mind? And this is Kolbe language. So if you think of the three parts, one is cognitive. So think of that as your resume. These are
Okay,
your skills. This is your education. This is your experience. I can write it all down. And for the
right.
most part, you can test it. The affective part of the mind, that's really where most of the other assessments fall. So if you know your Enneagram, you know your Clifton, you know 34,
Myers-Briggs
all of
or,
that.
okay,
Yes. And that's really important for you to have an understanding of how you make decisions from like a values and an emotive place. But
okay.
really, that third part of the mind, there's a new word. And for those of you who are Googlers, you're going to want to write this down. There's the conative, Conative, the conative part of the mind. This is who you are on an instinct base.
Hmm,
So if you were given a problem and you were free to be yourself, that is a huge caveat.
right.
Free to be yourself. How would you solve it? So this is this inner drive. This is the instinct base and how you do when you're free to be yourself. And that is my like little girl still peace on earth dream is that we really are all free to be ourselves. Like, wouldn't
Right.
that be something?
Now, I remember when you were telling me about this, one of the things I thought was fascinating because, I've taken Myers-Briggs assessments since I was a young girl, and
Same.
my letters have changed
Yes.
over time. And I've even met people Enneagram's an interesting beast because I don't
I
think
know.
those change, but it takes you a lot of maturity to get to your real numbers. That's my personal opinion on it. With the Kolbe, you were sharing these typically does not change
Right.
over the course
Correct.
of your life, right? And
So
is
if
it
you
because
actually
that
take it,
that
if you
style of how we do stuff just doesn't change?
yes, and if you
Okay.
take it with that free to be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
truly. And for a lot of us, like if you've had an upbringing that, was healthy, think back to that 10-year-old self. I've had some
Right.
people where their 10-year-old self may not have been their healthiest version, right? There's lots of circumstances.
Sure.
But if you think about like when I have an 11-year-old right now and she's so free and everything is fun and she's like still sparkly and has like this magic to her, and if I give her a problem, it's very obvious how she begins to solve. And
Yes. And it's
that
funny you
is,
say that. My daughter and I approach problem solving very
yes,
differently, which makes it
yes,
hard for us to work together sometimes when we're in problem
understood.
solving mode. Yeah.
And that problem solving mode is really an important piece because that typically does not change. And if you were to retake the Kolbe,
Yeah.
statistically speaking, it should not change. The numbers may shift one direction or the other by one number, but statistically speaking, it should not change.
Yeah. And I'm even thinking back to, childhood me to today. I can't really say I feel like my style of problem solving has ever really changed.
Right. I
Whereas
feel
other
like I
things
am
have,
even
like when I've taken the Myers-Briggs in different seasons of life, my letters have changed based
same,
on the emotional, the current load I'm in, all of that. So this
same.
is really interesting. And the reason why I thought this would be a great conversation here as it relates to everything work-life harmony, time management, organization, planning, productivity is when a common problem that almost all women have when they find me is I have all this stuff that needs to get done.
I know.
I only have this much time. This is a problem we need to solve, right?
Yes.
And different people step into how they tackle this differently. And so I thought this is a awesome tool to bring into my own toolkit to understand some of this. So
Yep.
everyone, I went ahead, I think is it about $50 to take the Kolbe?
55. Yep.
55.
If
So I paid the
if you hire us
55.
to do an interpretation, it's all included.
Oh, nice to know.
So I don't want them to go out and do it unless they don't want the interpretation part. If they
Right.
do, you can just go to whenyoulead.com and we'll get you all connected. But
Perfect.
yes, it's $55 without a
Yeah, so if you're
one-on-one
Googling it,
interpretation.
like, oh, let me go take this, don't just like pause. Let's listen to this and then we'll give all the scoop of how you can do it. So I went and paid to do the assessment. I took the assessment and then I shared all of my results with Heidi. And my results are it's 4 numbers. So my results came out as a 7762.
Correct?
And so there was a brief little thing I could read about it, but I really don't know much about this yet. So together, Heidi is now going to, and I'm a little nervous about this. I'm like, do
I
I really
know.
want to share who I am with everybody together
I
first
know.
diving into it. But I thought this would be fun and real. So Heidi is going to dive into 7762, and we're all going to learn a little bit how Megan solves problems, leads, etc.
Well, and I just want
I'm
to honor
scared.
I know, and I really just Heidi to Megan want to honor the vulnerability that
I'm
it
here
takes
for it.
to do this. And the best part about what's going to happen is you're going to learn more about yourself. And then I promise you, everyone else is going to be thinking like, yeah, that's fine. What are mine?
Right. Absolutely. And we're going to do a short version of this here today for the show, knowing that I'm probably going to be following up with you for
Right.
some other stuff. Yeah.
And
Okay.
typical
Awesome.
interpretations do take about an hour. I like to have that spaciousness. I want you to be able to ask follow-up questions. And so this is a very abbreviated little
Right.
snack. Think of this as
Perfect.
like the tapas of the assessment world.
I
When
like
you
tapas.
come to
Sounds good.
your interpretation, yeah. Interpretation where you're going to get a full meal. Okay.
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 Perfect.
Wonderful. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you one slide.
Okay.
And
And for
then
those of you that are not, that are just listening to the podcast here, not seeing the video, don't worry. We're going to talk through what is being shown on the screen. So you're not missing
yes,
out.
you won't. So what Megan has shared is her MO. Okay, so everybody will
My
have an
actual
MO.
modus operandus,
Operandi.
right?
Yes,
Operandi. Okay.
exactly. So it's the sum of these 4 numbers. So I also have my MO, which is a 5672. And what I
We
love
share the
about
last number together.
I know,
Okay.
and we
Cool.
have such beautiful synergy between the other three numbers. It's one of the reasons I really track with what you're saying and
Mm,
how you speak. And when I look at all your stuff, I'm like, God, that makes so much sense to me. And
interesting.
it's important to know that not everybody's going to show up that way.
Absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
then we get to customize. It's when I first started my business, it was very much about coaching. And I wanted to be able to coach to the client, customize it for them, and allow for the space between our numbers, so to speak, so
Right.
that I could clarify and see where they're coming from. Because one of the beautiful things about Kolbe, and for those of you who are Googling it right now, stop, because it's spelled Kolbe.
Yeah. Not the way you think.
Just a
All
heads up.
right.
It's not what you think. So what's been wonderful about Kolbe is it's predictive. So when
Mhm.
I look at your numbers, I already have an idea of how you're going to show up, at least conatively. So this
Right.
is really
Right.
important. I won't know your affective and I will not know your cognitive, but I have a pretty good idea based on your MO, how you're going to show up conatively. So I am going to share my screen for those of you listening. Don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it. I try to tell stories so you can actually hear it and see it in your mind's eye. Megan, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a very comprehensive slide, and what this is showing are the 12 Kolbe strengths. And I want you to hear these words because you have all 12 strengths. Everyone does.
Mm.
And so, yes, you have your MO of 7762, which means that you have 4 of these that come more naturally to you. You have
Gotcha.
4 of these strengths that come more naturally. And so I'm going to just take you across the top of this uh, graph or visual. So there are 4 action modes: FactFinder, follow through, quick start, and implementer. Again, FactFinder, follow through, quick start, and implementer. And then there are zones of operation that range from counteracting. So this is where you kind of pump the brakes, or you're in this middle part of the space where you're more of a reactor. You can kind of go either way. And
Mhm.
then on the bottom end of this is where you initiate action. So within each mode, you're going to have a number. Does that track, Megan?
Yes,
I want to make
totally.
sure. Okay. So I'm going to go through Megan's MO and just give you her words, because it's really, really important when you get your results back that you remember and write this down for those of you who write notes. And your podcast is so fantastic. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm writing notes all of the time when I'm listening to your podcast. You give so much
Good.
value. I can't even handle it. So thank you. So if you are writing this down, the numbers represent words. The numbers represent words. It does not represent how good you are in a certain mode. It's representing your words. So for you, Megan, your wonderful gift, your strength in FactFinder, it's the first column, is to specify. So Megan has a 7 in FactFinder. So her Kolbe MO begins with specify. FactFinder is how you gather and share information. So gathering and sharing information is part of what we have to do as humans. It's just like, it's part of the gig. But in FactFinder, there's simplify, explain, and specify. And Megan's gift is to specify. In follow through, this
Now,
is the
what do you mean
second.
by that by specify?
You want details.
Okay, so
The
I'm wanting to
details
get
matter.
as many details as I can when I'm researching about facts.
Correct. And research is another, and facts is another key word of what is called an initiating fact finder. So when
Okay.
I look at your MO, you are what's considered an initiating fact finder because your longest line is in fact finder at a 7. You also have a 7 in follow through, but there is this order that they go in. And so you are technically an initiating fact finder with a co-acting follow through. Are you tracking so far?
Yeah, yeah. And it's true. I'll say, like, when I'm given a question I can't answer, or like, oh, how are we going to do that? I do like to spend time going, well, hang on. Let me ask
Yes.
questions. Let me get as much information as I can so I can better maybe tackle this. So that
And
resonates with
all of that language is so beautifully fact finder. I
me.
want to do
Okay.
the research. I want to ask the questions. Investigating. Google was made for initiating fact finders.
Bring it. Okay.
If you are listening to this and you're like, that makes me want to die, you are more than likely not an initiating fact finder. The other two gifts in fact finder are to simplify and to explain. So simplifying fact finders, this is where you're like, just give me the Cliff's notes.
See, it's interesting. So when I saw those words, I was like, well, hang on, my whole mission is to simplify things, but
Yes,
I can't get there
correct.
until I have spent a lot of time specifying and gathering information. Whereas I know people that are instantly like, no, just net zero it for me. Like,
Yes.
and I'm like, I can't yet. So that makes sense to me.
And for you to know their MO, you
Mm-hmm.
would know that you would be in like a polarizing category. And then what would be really helpful for the two of you is to bring someone like me in because I'm in the middle.
Right,
And
right.
so having an explainer who can be the bridge where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I can hang with you, right? I can understand why you need this information. And by the way, these are needs. This isn't
Absolutely.
something you can bypass. Like, this is how you operate.
Right,
And
right.
the same with a simplifier. They can't do it. They're able to do it, but if they have to do specify and they're actually simplify, they're going to burn out. This is why you get
Mm.
quiet quitting. This is why people may not complete programs, is because you're not communicating in the way that they can hear you.
Got it. Okay, that's really powerful.
Yes, and it's
All right,
so
so our next number
fun
is
to
in the
know is
follow
follow
through.
through. I want you to think of follow through as systems.
Everyone's listening is like, oh yeah, we all know where
You're like,
Megan
yeah, we
falls here.
got you, sister. So, but think of this as how you put things in order. So it ranges from adapt to maintain to systematize. And Megan has a 7. So her gift in follow through is to systematize. And no one is shocked by this.
Yeah, and anyone listening to the top program or any top program students listening to this podcast, every process I teach in the program was me systematizing
Yes.
to solve the problem, right? It wasn't a one-time quick fix.
Nope.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't
So
be.
if I had
No.
not ranked that, I would have questioned this Kolbe index. Or I would have
Same.
questioned myself. I don't know.
When I got your numbers back, I was like, oh, this is why I understand the way that she processes.
Right.
We have very similar Colbys, but we also, I understand where you're coming from. And there may be people that you're working with who are in adaptation for follow through, where they're maybe going to use 2 or 3 of your steps. There
Mm-hmm.
might be other people who, and you may actually have a lot of them. This is a hypothesis, this is not proven, but I'm wondering how many people are attracted to the work that you do who are actually in the middle, where they really thrive on a system, but they don't want to come up with it.
Yes.
Does that make
And
sense?
that 100% does. And I know I have women in all three of those based on
I'm sure.
questions that I get and where they're like, well, yeah, I watched it, but I haven't done that. I skipped to the next step. I'm like,
Right.
well, this is problematic on why we're running into issues. And this
Yes.
is even shedding really valuable insight just for the team members here at the Pink Bee as well. I can see based on these three who on my team falls into which one of those buckets, neither bad
Right.
or wrong, but it gives a lot of clarity around why it's better for certain team members to create the systems and
Yes.
others to go, great, I'll just follow along and have no
Yes.
problem with that.
And I will caution everyone, including myself, to not try to guess people's MOs. I've been wrong a lot. I'm
That's
wrong
true.
about
That's true.
50% of the time. Because some people have had to adapt their Colbys or
Oh,
adapt
to
the way that they do
fit.
things to fit. And that's
Interesting.
one of the problems that we help solve as a team, is because that is a big deal and people will quit and you will have no idea why. But
Oh,
oftentimes they have
super.
been outside of their natural MO for so long that they just
Mhm.
physiologically cannot do it anymore. And so while yes, you may be able to see that, we wouldn't know until they took it.
You
And then
know,
there's other assessments to find out.
you saying this, guys, all right, we're throwing it all out on the table here. I'm going to share something I don't
Do
think,
it.
I just don't ever share this because I'm still, anyway, in my mid to late 20s, I moved to North Carolina, and got moved without a job, all that, get my first job. And I was put into a position where the position I had left, what I'd been doing for a long time, I'd been running a team of over 60 people. And I was used
Mm.
to creating the systems, all of that, streamlining. And long story, took me a while to get a job after moving. So I took the job I could get. And I was now looking back on it, being hired to adapt what someone else had put in place.
Ugh.
And wow, I'm going to say that, I'm just going to say it. I got fired.
Yeah.
So about 6 months after getting hired, I got fired,
Mm.
now realizing because I wasn't adapting I was doing my gift, which was looking at what was put in place and seeing a million inefficiencies and
Yes.
doing what I thought they were hiring me to do.
Mm.
And, they like to say I was, quote, let go because the company was going bankrupt and they were downsizing. But the day I got, quote, downsized, I was the only one. And it was another 3 months before they actually downsized. So let's call it what it is, which was I got fired. And I'm
Mm.
now realizing it's because I couldn't get into that adapt role.
Oh, I just want to honor the complexity of that, Megan. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I
I'm feeling
feel
very
this.
validated on my firing right now. So thank you for that.
Well, and
It's making me feel like they weren't
they
wrong.
missed
I
out.
wasn't wrong. We just weren't communicating on expectations and each other's strengths. So yeah.
And had they brought our team in and we were
Mhm.
able to find that out,
Yeah.
so
Would have
oftentimes what
been very
happens,
different, I think.
yes, because
Mhm.
oftentimes what happens is, think about, let's go back to the three parts of the mind, right? They're hiring based on the cognitive part of your mind. They look at your resume and they're like, yeah, she has the skill to do this. Skill is different than MO.
Yeah.
So Kolbe is actually designed to be used in hiring. And so,
Yeah.
yes, you can have
100%.
a
Yep.
job description. That's wonderful. And it's only one part of it. So, what we do is help teams to understand, does the job description actually vibe with their MO? And
Yeah.
if not, we need to decide, because the person's not changing.
Clearly I didn't.
And thank
I
God you
know.
didn't.
Yeah, I
But
didn't.
one of the pieces that is really sad to me is that there are so many people thinking, I've done something wrong, or there's something wrong with me, or there's drama on a team. When drama shows up on a team, or if someone is internalizing the way that they're being managed, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And we spend our adult life working.
Yeah.
This
Oh
is
my
not
gosh.
just like
Okay.
assessment. This is, the word that you used was validating. And I
Yeah,
just want to give you a
very.
hug. I'm like, oh man, so happy for you.
Yeah, sometimes it takes us 20 something years to get there, but we get there. All right. So then our third category is quick start.
And I'm just going to say it. I have a hard time with the name of this category,
Okay.
right?
Because even I was like, what does that even mean?
It's not about speed. I want you to think about this as risk. So if you can think of quick start as risk and change. And so there are three different zones of operation within this mode, and they are stabilize, modify, and innovate. So stabilizing quick starts are going to pump the brakes. They're going to be like, hold up, let's protect the status quo a little bit. Let's not make change just to make change. The middle quick starts, they can go either way. They're like, yeah, if we need to change, we can, but hey, what if we question this first?
Mm-hmm.
And then really the initiating quick start, which is what I am, this is where you innovate. So if there's change or if there's a problem, my natural MO is give me a whiteboard and a bunch of smelly markers and let's mind map this. So Megan is an initiating fact finder. She's going to Google it. I'm going to Google it probably third.
Well,
I
now
need to
I
bring,
got,
go ahead.
no, initiating FactFinder. Okay. Got it.
Yep.
I was looking at
So
the quick start, not FactFinder.
so Megan's quick start is modify. And you're right on that
Which
border of,
surprised me. Yeah. And I'm right on the number right before the innovate because
yep.
I would have struggled where to put myself there, but seeing it right on that line makes sense to me because I am risk adverse in some ways, but I also do love change, but I
Yes.
don't like change for change's sake. I want to
And
make
I
sure
do.
there's a reason for a change.
Yes. And you're going to Google why. And then before you make the change, there will
Yeah.
more than likely be a system that you're changing. And
Yes.
so when you're given a problem, it makes perfect sense for you to go, let's ask questions, let's clarify, let's Google it. What is the system that we can design around this? And then let's go.
Yeah. 100% me.
And then with implementer then, and I want to be really clear about implementer is OR, implementer. And this is not about you
What do you mean
implement.
by OR implementer?
Yep. So this does not mean that you either implement or you don't. So
Oh, okay.
I live in the Midwest, and implement is farm equipment. So
Oh,
are you an
interesting.
implementor means how do you handle space and tangibles?
Okay.
So if you are on the counteract implementer, you can see the big picture. And this is where both Megan and I fall. I don't need you to prove to me that there's a tractor for me to be able to see it. Like I don't need to build a tractor, right?
Gotcha.
In the middle is restoration. You're not going to build anything from scratch. You're going to fix what you have. those who are in demonstrate and implementer, these are the ones who are the builders. They are the ones like the architects who are actually building the actual model. Think of this as like a specialist, as a surgeon. They're very specific and detail oriented and quality minded. I don't need to build a tractor. I have zero interest in that. I can see it in my mind's eye. That's good enough. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
And so
so I work with,
you and I have the same number on this one. We're both in that envisioner. Now,
yep,
this is because you said I can see it in my mind's eye. Curious if this falls into this category or not. So one of my mom's gifts that thankfully I kind of have some of is when I was, first starting out on my own, we would go to like garage sales and things. And she's really gifted she could see that old beat up dresser for $10 and could see what that could become with a little bit of elbow grease. And so like I furnished my whole first apartment with the exception of my bed for like under $70 at garage sales. And we went home and did the wood putty and did the sanding and the painting and the standing, sanding and all that for my dresser desk and that, because together we could see that hunk of junk and we're like, oh, I know what this will be. Whereas we'd bring it home and I would use my parents' garage to fix stuff up. And my dad would see it and be like, I don't even understand why you bought it. Like to him, he could not see, no matter what we said, that what this was going to be until it was done. Is that in alignment with that envisioning some?
yes. And
Okay, interesting.
just because you can see it doesn't mean that you'll necessarily want to do it.
Yes, I was gonna say now I could see it, but where my mom's gift was she could actually make it happen a lot better than I could.
Yes. And I cannot.
I
I'm
couldn't
not
always
interested in that.
make it.
I
Yeah,
would rather hire it out. I would rather communicate my vision to someone who had
same,
that MO. But
same.
I can see like my
And I
intent.
could do it if I had to. It just wasn't gonna be great. I wasn't the best person for the doing it. Oh
And
gosh,
if
this is bringing
you,
so much clarity even into my team
I was
too.
just going to say, what are you
Holy
recognizing? Say it,
cow.
say it.
Yeah. Thankfully, I have the most amazing COO, Taryn. Shout out to you. She sees my brain. She understands when I tell her the things, but it wouldn't happen the way it happens without her. And I always say, like, could I do it?
Yes, of course.
Yes, but it wouldn't be as good. It wouldn't be as efficient. It wouldn't be as polished.
Right.
And I'd be kind of miserable.
And you couldn't do it long term without being miserable.
Yes, 100%. Except for the few things I love. Like there's
Of
certain
course.
software things I love to tinker with or whatever. But
But
oh
it's
yeah,
more than likely you're trying to come up with a system. Like you're
yes, a
right.
100%. And to me, my hands are on it, I am solving the problem and creating the system as
I
I'm using
know.
the tools. So,
And
oh my gosh.
you're doing
Yes.
the research of it.
Yes.
Right. It's so fun. And so
Oh
that's
my
like the Cliff's Notes
Lord.
version of what
Yeah.
the Kolbe is. And for you as a fact finder, you're going to have more questions. You're
Mhm.
going to be like, okay, now I need to put this in order. So I just want you to know, human to human, like I'm here for all of it. I love it. You tell
And
me.
it's interesting because one of the things I like to do whenever I'm working with the students in the program, and those of you listening, you hear me say this on our live calls, like, okay, if you have a question for me, I want you to state the question first, and then you may give me the supporting information instead of just starting to talk, because now I know it's because I need to know problem. And now I'm listening, my version of Googling all the details to then be able to hopefully provide a great answer for people or ask the right follow-up questions to get what I need. Whereas if someone just starts talking, I'm like, where are we going? Where are we going? I don't know where we're going yet. And it's harder for me to give supportive information that
And
way.
that's very physiological for you. And for someone like
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm not going to get to my question until I start talking. I need to give you all the info and I
Yes.
need to speak it. So
Yes.
that's the other piece about these MOs is there are different ways to communicate
Mm-hmm.
with the different MOs. And that's part of
Yes.
where I become a translator. So on my team, I have a team who they do have a lot of fact finder energy and they like things in writing so they can reference it. I'm like, if you send me anything longer than a 2-paragraph email, it's gonna stay in my inbox because it's too much for me to process.
Right. Right.
Whereas if they were to give me a voice message back, I do very well with voice. I don't need to read it. I don't want to read it. And so we use
Fascinating.
technology that supports us both.
Yeah.
So when
And I'm
I
even
am
thinking in my
working,
own family unit, my daughter is more like you,
yep,
where the talking is the processing of, and then we get to the question. And I've learned that's her. And so I do better with it, but it's still like, it's hard for me to
yes.
follow that path with her. Like I have
And
to learn
that's where
to just be
having,
still.
yes. And so one of the tools that we use, especially for teams or for couples or for, CFO, CEO combos, is we do what's called an A to A, where
Now,
they
do you
would
do this
take,
with husbands and wives as well?
yes.
Because oh my gosh, I like seeing light bulbs going off on certain styles. Ooh, we got balloons here. Certain styles of communication with even my husband and I. I'm like, oh
We've
yeah,
worked with a lot of
yeah,
couples.
yeah.
And
I
this
see
has
that.
helped my relationship even with my own partner, Mike, because he is an initiating fact finder. And I don't need the same amount of facts that he does. And my initiating quick start was very stressful to him because I might have 10 ideas, but he is
Mhm.
like thinking he needs to research them in real time. And I'm like, dude, only one of these is probably good. Like, why are we researching already?
Yeah, and it's funny. I am unclear what my husband's would be. So it'd be
Right.
fascinating for me to learn that.
And I would be happy to help you with that. It really
Yeah,
is
very cool.
dual that dual reading is so cool because we'll give you a report that puts both of you side by side. So that bar chart
Right.
that you got, you'll get his, and it literally says it goes category by category, right? It
Yep.
goes fact finder, follow through, quick
Yep.
start, implementer, and it literally says the worst mistake you could make. So when we got our dual
This
chart, it
could
was
be an
like,
interesting
Heidi,
follow-up, although
this
I know
is
he would
the
not do
this
this
is
on
the
air.
worst mistake you could make.
Yeah,
Like,
and
oh,
what I
there's
love about this, kind of back to this being a different kind of assessment, like my family, we've all done the Myers-Briggs and the whatnot, but and when you're reading about those, it's talking a lot more at that emotional level of
yeah,
what do we each need emotionally, what do we need here? But what I love about this, because I do get questions a lot, and I talk a lot about setting up what I call a family communication center, which
yes,
is basically, here's the reality of our lives this week. Operationally, here's how we're solving all the problems, AKA
yes.
everything that needs to get done. That this is where I think this would come into play with families so powerfully to know how to present information, how to talk about, ooh, this is a tricky one. How are we going to figure out how, we need to be in three places at one time? How do we figure out this problem together? It's so much more pragmatic as
It's
opposed
specific.
to the emotional, that I think this would be a huge benefit in that
I do
area.
too. And
Yeah.
how we use it in our own family. And if you're taking this version of the Kolbe, it's 18 and over, but they do have a kids version. But this, for us, I am able to remember, oh, that's right. This is how Mike processes information, right? And
Hmm.
when I am working on my own projects by myself, I prioritize my own Kolbe. When I am collaborating and there's a collaborative problem, we have to keep this is on my team too. We have to keep everybody's Kolbes in mind. So
Right.
that's where the platinum rule comes in, which is to treat others the way they want to be treated. And then we don't make it personal.
Yeah.
This isn't personal.
No,
It's just what it
let's
is.
align everyone with their natural strengths wherever possible, as much as possible, right?
Yes. And knowing that everyone has all 12 strengths and that, so I can't say like, I can't specify or I can't stabilize because it's not true. Of course I can. But if I
Hmm.
have to go outside of my natural MO for a long period of time, I'm really unhappy and I make everyone miserable.
It's so funny. Taryn and I just recently experienced this with something that was, under the confines of traditional job descriptions or whatever, probably was sitting in her wheelhouse assigned to her.
Sure.
And it's stuff I actually enjoy. But
Yes.
if you follow true CEO rules, this is probably not what you should be doing. And thankfully, we had the conversation on our weekly call where she was just finally very open and was like, I'm dreading this. And I was like, oh
Hmm.
my God, I want it back. Like, I
Hmm.
love
Beautiful.
that.
And that's
And
conative.
so, and then I had all these other ideas that I want done, but I don't want to be the one who did them that were going to fall to me. And we're like, great, I'm taking it back
Hmm.
because I enjoy it. And now these other things are being done. And so I think this also gives some flexibility just because you're in a certain role. Maybe you don't restrict what you do for that either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
we have three tenets of when you lead. One is to be leader centered because we genuinely believe that when leaders are supported and nourished and nurtured, the teams are going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like, but we're also strength centered. Let's design your
Mhm.
role as humanly as possible. Let's bring humanity back to the workplace, right? And this is
Yep.
also about being equity centered. We don't all need the same thing, but let's create the environment where you get to lead your position and you have more decisions to make. That's true, right? We center your strengths, we center the equity of your team. I mean, it is just,
Oh,
we go
no,
three for three.
yeah, I
Did you
know.
drink the
And
Kool-Aid, Megan? Did you drink it?
yes, no, 100%. This is, whether it's in a team environment, a corporate, a family environment, I can 100% see this is filling a void that a lot of the traditional personality assessments are
Right.
not filling.
Because we are
So
we are a system of doers, like we just
yeah,
are.
yeah, 100%. So where, for people interested in going, okay, I really want to take this next step, where do they go?
So go to whenyoulead.com, and
When
that
you
is
lead. Okay, and is that
when you
YOU? And
lead.
we'll have the link
Correct.
in the show notes. Okay, perfect.
Yes, whenyoulead.com. You can also find us, all over social, LinkedIn,
Yes.
Instagram, Facebook, those things. And you can DM us if you're a quick start and you're like, just tell me where to go. That's my famous word or my famous phrase in our team. Just tell me where it is. I don't need all the details.
Right.
So you can DM me and I will reach out to you, I promise. Or just go to whenyoulead.com and it'll be right there for you to be able to connect with us,
Fantastic.
take the Kolbe and get your interpretation.
Oh, so, so helpful. Heidi, thank you. This was so generous of you to give
Mm.
all of this time. I really, really appreciate it.
I'm so grateful to be here, Megan. Thanks for your time.